Robin, some of the things that we've read, that he's hit you, that he's chased you and your mother around in Russia, that Mike has a very volatile temper. True?
Extremely volatile temper. I think people see that about every 3 months. He's got a side to him that's scary. Michael is intimidating, to say the least. I think that there's a time when he cannot control his temper, and that's frightening to me or to my mother, and to anyone around. It's scary.
What happens?
He gets out of control, throwing, screaming.
Does he hit you?
He shakes, he pushes, he swings. Sometimes I think he's trying to scare me. There are times when, or there were times that it happened when I thought I could handle it, you know. And just recently I've become afraid. I mean, very, very much afraid. For instance, Russia, I was afraid. And my mom and I are in the lobby of a hotel, and I said, what are we doing?
What was happening?
He was out of control.
Chasing after you in the lobby?
Yeah, Michael is a manic depressive. He is. I mean, that's just a fact. And when he's in a manic state, he doesn't sleep. He has enormous amounts of energy. So your sleeping agitates him. He gets you up. There's an argument. I mean, of course you want to sleep.
So you run out of the room and he runs after you.
Right.
And people see this, and it's in the paper.
Right.
You know, I wanted to do this interview with the two of you together. I could have talked to Robin outside and you outside, but I wanted you to hear this because I wanted people to understand. And you're sitting here and listening to this.
I think what happens sometimes, I think for the first time I can understand abused women, because what happens is, or people, you know, you say, why do you stay in there? Well, number one, you love the person, and number two, you get accustomed to being treated poorly. So every day, behavior that you would normally not accept becomes everyday behavior. And I woke up and I said, I don't deserve this. I never had this in my life before, and I'm not going to tolerate this.
Where were you?
I was in New York, in our apartment in New York. Michael was in upstate New York where he trains. And I think for the first time he detected something different in my voice. I wasn't screaming. I was serious and to the point. And he worried, and that bothered him. And he kept calling. All throughout the night, he would call and wake me up. Do you love me? Are you sure you love me? Finally, it was about 11 o'clock. He called me and said that he loved me and he was going to prove his love and to call back at 11:20. I knew right away what Michael was going to do. It's something that he'd been threatening to do. We had seen that side. I tried to get him to hang on, and I couldn't. I rushed into the room. I told Mom. At 11:15, I called, and the ambulance was on its way. To tell you the truth, they told me he was in a car. It was a great deal of relief.
What had you thought?
I thought that I knew that he had guns, or I knew that he'd been trying to get guns, and I thought that maybe he was going to be a little bit more deliberate.
So that you'd feel sorry?
Yes, yeah. So I was actually relieved. Got in a car and went there, and I was angry. I was very, very angry. With the type of disease that Michael has, he was a hyperactive child. It turned into something else. It's something that he's had for a very long time. It went untreated, therefore it got worse. It's something that the doctor says gets worse in your 20s.
Why do you think this is that nobody saw it before? The Customato didn't see it, the Bill Caton didn't see it.
I can't imagine that anyone could live with Mike Tyson and not recognize that there was a problem. Let me say this. I mean, there are times when Michael is manic and he's incredibly abusive. Not physically, mentally, verbally abusive. I can't imagine that anyone would live with Mike Tyson, the one that I know, the one that I see, and not recognize that there's a problem. There's no possible way. Hitting teachers, hitting girls and pulling them into a bathroom. You cannot just, it's not a bad boy when they occur too often.
So why wasn't it treated?
Because I think he did very well in the ring. I think he did exceptionally well in the ring.
This is what I know about my wife. This is the only thing I know about my wife. I don't know who she's sleeping with, who can she be with him, but I know this, that her whole existence is me and the kids, my other kids too.
Yeah.
And as long as I know that, she can do whatever she wants.
Right, because someone's wife is, I feel like, the only person that doesn't have an ulterior motive. If you win, they win.
No.
If you lose, they lose.
The
Right
reason
along
that,
with
the
you.
reason that we, do you know why we have a mate? Know what the reason that we have mates for? For we can know that we're men.
And now, for the moment all you motherfuckers been waiting for.
All right, I'm going to talk about Mike Tyson. I'm going to talk about Mike Tyson's comments about his wife. Vaguely stating that she probably steps out on him, but that he's indifferent, that he doesn't care. Honestly, I wish he wouldn't have admitted that, to the public, because when he's talking in an interview, he's telling that to the world. I wish he wouldn't have admitted it. Back in the day, Mike Tyson called a rope charge, I guess I should say, keeping the standards and practices of the platform. He called a charge for sexual misconduct and went to jail for, I think, like 6 years or so. And it was a bad deal. And basically, later it was discovered that this woman was a fraud, right? She had already, in her brief about Mike Tyson, she said that he had taken her virginity. And it was later discovered that she tried the same tactic with a Caucasian guy, a lawyer, I believe, or something like a guy in law school or something. That she had reported similar things. She had sued him for some kind of, she was suing him, or she had reported him for the same thing, before Tyson, and said the same thing, that I don't know any woman that has two virginities, okay? Unless she's talking about a backdoor hole there. I don't know. But, I remember Mike Tyson got arrested. He said that, I should have walked her down to I should have walked her downstairs. I don't want to make no bones about it that Mike Tyson's a brute. Back in the day, maybe he's more reflective today because of his experiences. But back in the day, he was a brute. And Cus D'Amato was the guy that elevated him. They elevated him, brought him up, gave him that tough love, made him more disciplined and everything. Then when Cus passed away, Mike Tyson was food for everyone else. Everybody feasted on him. The woman in his bed and his business associates and everything. And he just had a bad deal. He didn't even have a good attorney or nothing. He had like a tax attorney. He didn't have a criminal defense attorney to deal with the situation and shit. He probably would have fared better. Maybe should have called Johnny Cochran or whatever. They said, I remember back in the day, he was always known as a brute. And they had said he was trying that shit with Bill Cosby's daughter or something, which is ironic considering, how that sector of black Hollywood turned out and shit. Cosby going to jail for some bullshit. Mike Tyson going to jail for some bullshit. Is it like 6 years? He did all 6 years in that bitch. And then he came out and he got started again and shit. And it's just like, like he's totally buck broken. I'm not saying anybody did anything to him. Nobody probably did shit to him in prison. They just left him the fuck alone. Because, his hands are deadly weapons and shit. And just because his reputation, I think nobody's really fucking with him. He's a celebrity in there. But I'm just saying, when he came out, he was bug broken and got his career started. I remember being disgusted. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. I remember being disgusted because I heard, I was listening to a fucking radio station there, and Madame Noir used to have a feature on that radio station. And she was talking about how sexy he was and all this bullshit. It just made me nauseous, not because of what he was in jail supposedly before, but that some females was even though he's perceived as a brute with no self-control, some women found this really attractive and shit. And then you look at Mike Tyson, you see like a brute, you know, and then he has like, you know, the mousy voice and everything, you know, I can't really explain. I just thought it was bullshit. You know, when the female was talking about Mike Tyson on a little radio show, and how he was dressed up in the nice clothes and all this shit, and he looked real sexy, and some sister need to snap him up and shit. I'm like, no, that's the last he needs. He needs to get his life together. He needs to go into individual counseling. And like his wives after, you know, Robin Gibbons, you know, they were pretty much managing him, you know, from day to day, you know. I don't know why he had to divorce from the middle wife. But he's with a woman right now who seems to be, you know, good for him and everything. And then he admits this, and it makes me side-eye her. You know, it's just like, goddamn, they never stop eating on this man. And he, you know, I really can't cape for him all that much because he said some crazy shit in the past, you know. It's just like, fuck around, you know. This guy has PTSD from a bunch of shit, you know. Now, I don't doubt maybe he gets some kind of help, you know. Maybe he's on some kind of medication for stress. And I don't doubt he has PTSD. He did a movie called Black and White where he's just, you know, in there as himself. And he had no, I don't think he had a script or anything, but there's a scene where Robert Downey Jr. Tries to make a pass at him, and he loses his shit, and that's legitimate. And then you see Brooke Shields, who's playing Robert Downey Jr.'s wife, comforting Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson makes the odd comment. He says, oh, you know, you guys are trying to bury me. You're trying to get me again. You're trying to bury me under the jail. And every time after that, after I seen that movie and heard that clip, and I knew he was just there, they just told him to ad lib something. So those were his thoughts at the time. I think the guy's bug broken. And, you know, I really didn't, I wish he wouldn't admit that in front of the camera if that's what an agreement he has with his wife. We need men to be more masculine, okay? I hate to say that in regards to Mike Tyson, but, you know, he's fucking broken and shit. We don't want to hear about your cuckold status, okay? We don't want to hear about that. Nobody wants to hear about that. It's all about tearing down the black male image and shit. And please don't contribute to that. When it's all about that. It's all about making us a second class in our own ethnic group and shit. And it's just not happening and shit. We're fighting back because it's gotten really bad. It's really fucking bad. It's a fever pitch. You admitting that shit and open to a camera, you know, talking in, you know, not talking in the right company, it's an ill, all right? It's an ill, Mike Tyson. Nobody wants to know you're a cuckold, okay? We don't want to know. Even if you've come to terms with it, I feel like deep down, it's like he felt like he rebels against being a cuckold, he'll end up back in jail again. I always get that feeling that he thinks he might end up back in jail again, you know, for the right or wrong thing. So, you know, he just walks the tightrope and shit without an umbrella. It's a total bullshit. You know, back in the day, he went on, I knew he was fucked up when he went on the Barbara Walters with his wife, Robin Gibbons, and she humiliated him on TV. She talked trash about him in a very calm voice, you know, because she thinks she's smarter than him and everything. Maybe you could think that, but I just think malevolence isn't intelligence, okay? Malevolence isn't intelligence. But she talked trash about him while he's sitting next to her. And if you watch the interview, as she's talking this trash, he gets more handsy with her, you know, like in a, you know, fake loving way. But like right after that interview, Mike Tyson has a tantrum in his own mansion and shit, which involved him throwing like, I think, a couch out of his front window and shit. He threw like a fucking couch through the window and shit, you know, or something. He did something. He had some kind of tantrum. And I remember the news report that they were showing outside of the house and some shit was messed up out there. And I'm like, well, what did they expect to happen? She just went on TV. She's supposed to be married to this man for better or worse and all that fucking, you know, the arm behind the back, you know, vows that you take. You know, they don't have obey in there no more. They just have cherish, you know, at its most generic. Yeah, Mike Tyson got fucked over. That was part of Robin Givens' emotional, you know, terrorism of this man. You know, just abused him mentally. Cheated on him with like Brad Pitt and shit, you know. Like seeing her ass. He busted her ass. And I'm just like, this guy went through a ton of shit. And then when his guardian passed away, he was meat for all these vultures out there. It's a shame. I, you know, I'm kind of 50-50 with Mike Tyson as a boxer. He's one of the greatest of all time, no doubt. But like a lot of times I feel like his reputation defeated the boxers before they even fought him, to be honest and shit. And I feel like he was defeated mentally by a bunch of scheming people that robbed him of his wealth, his considerable wealth. And because of this, I went and looked up his net worth. And I ended up looking up the net worth of other people that are not in the public eye, that are professional athletes that are retired. And if you're a buffoon and a coon and shit, I'm not referring to Tyson, by the way. If you're a buffoon and a coon, sky's the limit. If you're just an agent. But if you're a fucking regular person over there in the system, the glass ceiling for people like Mike Tyson and others is $10 million. I checked a bunch of other athletes, semi-retired or retired, and the ceiling is around like 10 million and below. So that's a glass ceiling to live happily ever after in the public eye and shit as a public figure when you're a straight black man and shit. I hope Mike Tyson, continues to live his best life and enjoys, his time on the planet with his children and family and everything. And I hope everything goes off without a hitch, but I would much prefer it in the future if he would leave out the, telling the public that he is a cuckold, a willing cuckold and shit while his wife's out fucking around. That's embarrassing. Just as an ethnic group and shit, I find it personally embarrassing and shit. And that's the idea why we have this sound clip and why the mainstream media puts out all this negative shit, It's to demoralize us.